welcome to the BEASTwriter family where social media engagement is encouraged. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be breaking down the rumors in regards to where Davante Adams is going to land up and end up. So there's some talk in regards to the Chicago Bears being linked to Davante Adams. I don't see that happening. I'm going to tell you the big three reasons why I believe that won't happen. But before we go ahead and delve into it, I just want to say thank you and mahalo to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. And if you have yet to subscribe, you guys can go ahead and do so in the lower right hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Alright, so we're going to talk about Davante Adams. If you're new to how I run my videos, I like to break it down into three parameters, right? The first parameter is who are the players involved? In this case, it's Davante Adams. The second parameter is why the move was made, or in this case, potentially could be made. And the third, but not least, parameter is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up the tickers. I know how you guys like those, and I like them too. Kind of keeps me on topic. All right, so make sure the ticker's up. All right, Packers wide receiver Davante Adams. Who is Davante Adams? Well, he's a 2014 second-round pick, drafted number 53 overall out of Fresno State. And he's 6'1", 212 pounds. He ran a 4.56 40-yard dash, had a 6.823 cone drill, had a 39.5-inch vertical jump. So you guys know what he brings to the table. Obviously, we saw what he did with Aaron Rodgers, who may or may not return to the Green Bay Packers. But again, Davante Adams is a premier wide receiver, top 5 player in this league, and you cannot doubt his skill set because at the end of the day, the guy is one of the best and truly one of the best route runners when it comes to coming off his stem. All right, so you double down on those gains and let's talk about what he brings to the table. Well, he's a 2-time first-team All-Pro. He is 1 year removed from being the NFL touchdown receptions leader back in 2020, so you know the guy is a big red zone target just by default. 6'1", 212, can't beat that. 39.5-inch vertical jump. You know he wins those 50-50 balls at the catch point. So the guy really brings more to his, how should I say it? He brings more to the table than your average one-trick pony. All right. So all in all, he has 669 catches over the course of his career for 8,121 receiving yards and 73 touchdowns. All right. So the guy is a beast in his own right. So it brings me to the question, why potentially would the Bears make financial sense? Or does it make financial sense? All right, why the move could be made, right? Why is this move even being discussed? Well, the Bears need a wide receiver 1. There's no guarantee that Allen Robinson's going to be returning. You guys know they franchise tagged him last year, and we don't know what's going to happen this year with the new GM in place, right? So with that being said, you have second-year wide receiver Darnell Mooney, who kind of had a breakout season, and really he went over 1,000 yards, 1,055 receiving yards to be exact. And again, the Bears do not hold a first-round pick. Many people tend to forget this, but they don't hold a first-round pick because of the Justin Fields deal. So with that being said, if you don't hold a first-round pick, and obviously you don't have an offensive line, and Ryan Poles even said in his press conference that he is biased because he's a former offensive lineman and he likes building teams from the inside out, not the outside in. Odds are, if you watch my Poles video, which I already talked about, how he likes to build up his team organically, retaining his homegrown talent, which we'll talk about later in detail in this podcast, but that likely means they're going to roll offensive line in round 2. All right, they're going to go offensive line, give Justin Fields some goons up front to him so he can go ahead and go through his progressions, right? Go through the proper reads, help out the running game, because that's going to help out him in the passing game. So you guys can see how those two things kind of mirror each other. And with that being said, again, we're going to double down and triple down on what I'm being discussed, because at the end of the day, when you watched Ryan Poles' interview, press conference interview, post press conference, whatever you want to call it, all these interviews that he had with the Chicago Bears, you would know he also doesn't believe in targeting a wide receiver 1 unless it creates a perfect storm. He likes to build through the draft and complement the missing pieces in free agency. Complement, not go out and overspend in free agency. And talk about free agency, they don't have very much cap space to work with to begin with. They only have $28.6 million in cap space to begin with. So if it was me and I'm Ryan Poles, I'm thinking like Ryan Poles, I think a better play would be to go out and get a serviceable offensive plug-and-play guard like a Laken Tomlinson from the San Francisco 49ers. And then in round 2, you can go ahead and have some draft flexibility to select the best player available, which in my scenario and based on my mocks and how I see it coming up based on draft position today, I see that player being a wide receiver. I would let Allen Robinson walk because I think he's going to want too much money. And again, you're going to franchise tag the guy 2 years in a row. I just don't see that happening. And with that being said, I think that they should go wide receiver in round 2. I think there's going to be a really good player on that board at that selection because wide receiver is the cream of the crop in this 2022 NFL draft. It seems to be the trend in the last few years when it comes to the NFL draft. So again, the Bears are not within that Super Bowl window, so there's no point in going after a guy like Davante Adams, basically giving up the majority of your cap space to solidify one position when you have other needs across the board. Look, Davante Adams can't even have success without a stable offensive line because Justin Fields is not going to have the proper time to go through those reads. So it doesn't matter who your quarterback is, doesn't matter who your running back is, doesn't matter who your wide receiver is, doesn't matter who your tight end is, if you don't have a strong offensive line. That's where games are won, down in the trenches. All right, so best bet is to build through the draft and retain your homegrown talent, as I said before, which brings me to the question of Roquan Smith, right? He is all pro status. In my last 2 years of grading Roquan Smith, well, actually last 3 years, he's been graded consistently as a top 3 off-ball linebacker. Not top 5, he's definitely top 3. In fact, last year in my grading system, he was the number 1 ranked off-ball linebacker in terms of pass coverage. Yes, even better than Darius Leonard. All right, so I'm putting it all together. I'm seeing my analysis and watching game film of every single snap played when it comes to the Chicago Bears defense. Look, they're transitioning to a 4-3 base from a 34 front. Roquan Smith is going to be your leader and the Mike linebacker for the foreseeable future. Let's get that guy re-signed first before delving into other potential possibilities. All right. So that's what I see there. And then last but not least, the third parameter, guys, is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. What's the value of adding Adams, again, with no offensive line? We already talked about this. It doesn't add much value because, again, if you don't have a strong offensive line, I'm beating a dead horse here, but it makes no sense. It's kind of common sense because it makes no sense, right? Everything starts up front. So, like I said, it's as simple as that. Plus, the draft, like I said, is filled with wide receiver talent. It's the cream of the crop. I think Ryan Poles is going to take a draft day wait-and-see approach. I don't think he's going to hit the panic button because he doesn't need to. He has Darnell Mooney there. He still has Allen Robinson technically there, even though he's a UFA, but they could still slap the non-exclusive franchise tag if they choose to wish and then send him off to another team if they choose to up the contract and then they get 2 first-round draft picks in return or whatever their compensation is. But then rather than pay a wide receiver to help who's going to be resetting the market like Davante Adams, I would rather use that $28.6 million cap space and getting serviceable players and filling more needs rather than going all in on a player when your team is really in shambles, especially on the offense side of the football, right? Defensive side, you're kind of pretty much, you have a strong foundational piece there. I would say the defense is much better than the offense. I mean, yeah, you have David Montgomery there. And you have guys like Khalil Herbert there, who I really like, these running backs there. You have Darnell Mooney, who I just discussed. Cole Kmet, he's all right. But what I really like is that defense. I like that 4-3 transition. You have Robert Quinn, you have Khalil Mack screaming off the edge, and you have Angelo Blackson and Eddie Goldman up front. That is a strong, solidified defensive front seven that you can work with, along with Roquan Smith and a few other pieces, right? So again, I like what they did and transition to that 4-3 base under Alan Williams now, who's coming in as the new defensive coordinator. But we just have to see how this all plays out. So again, I don't see Davante Adams being even mentioned in the Chicago Bears realistically because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, guys. And I hate to say it, as much as I would like Davante Adams on the Chicago Bears or the San Francisco 49ers or even the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers, what's the likely scenario that this is going to happen? It's not very likely. It's not very likely. So that's all I have to say about that. While Bears fans desperately need a wide receiver 1, I'm not doubting that because you guys do. I think Darnell Mooney at best is a wide receiver 2 at best. I believe Poles will go in another direction. That's the way I see it going. And that's where all his mindset and his ideology and based on his past behavior to predict future behavior it all signs point to that being happening, right? So again, you can find a guy. Well, let's watch my Poles video. They got Tyreek Hill. They got Mecole Hardman. So it's not like Ryan Poles doesn't know what he's doing and find wide receiver talent. Well, that'll be it for this Chicago Bears podcast. If you guys like what I had to say, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Also, give it a thumbs up. And again, you guys wanted my input on Davante Adams and reasons why or why not he would be a good fit for the Chicago Bears. I just listed the reasons why in more ways than one. Thank you so much for tuning in to this YouTube podcast video. I'll be posting more Chicago Bears content, more San Francisco 49ers content, Pittsburgh Steelers content, whatever the case may be, as I continue to cover all 32. Thank you so much. Have a good day. BEASTwriter.